everybody. Welcome back to Salesforce with Megan. If you are coming back to the channel, thank you. And if you are new here, I talk about everything Salesforce tech, career growth, and productivity. And if these topics do interest you, please make sure to subscribe. I release videos every week. So for today, we have a special guest, as you can see, Vanessa Grant. Her and I actually first met when she commented on my post after passing a Conga certification. And it's funny because that's actually when I first started my content creation. And I loved immediately that she noticed my Conga badge. And we'll talk into that in a few minutes. But the fact that we connected based off that really just made me interested in finding out more about her. So for those that have watched my videos before, you know that we talk a lot about building your community and networking, and that is just a perfect example of it. So what a better way than doing that than actually having her on the channel. So we're gonna go ahead and hear about her professional journey. So Vanessa, it's such a pleasure to have you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Vanessa Grant. I'm a senior consultant at Salesforce Partner Simplis. Currently, role-wise, I'm doing like solution architecting, but I would say my bread and butter is really Salesforce business analysis is really the big thing that I'm passionate about. And I've also been really active, I would say in the last year or so in the Salesforce community, doing a lot of mentorship. And that's been really important to me. I think keeping up with what's going on in the community, and also similar to you, reaching out to folks that are maybe newer to the community and making them, as I was speaking to Justin Gavette last week, and I liked how he said, joining the Salesforce community makes you feel like you're just getting a big warm hug, and I like being a part of that big warm hug.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm so excited to have you here. So before we go into questions, I really, offline, Vanessa and I were speaking and I went through her profile and I just found it so fascinating. I want to showcase Vanessa's background and really starting all the way back into college days. So I would love to hear, where did you go to school? What did you major in? And did it change when you went to graduate school as well?
Oh, sure. So I grew up in Queens in New York City. And so every, Queens gal likes to imagine college in the big city. So I ended up being an NYU girl twice. I got a bachelor's in music business. Yeah. And that career decision was based on when I was in high school. I used to hang out with a bunch of computer science nerds, and I was like, "Ooh, maybe I could do computer science." And so I took a year of computer science, like AP Comp Sci, and back when we were learning Pascal, to date myself a little bit, and I ended up getting like a 1 on the AP exam, and that was the message from whatever higher power that computer science was not the right path for me. So I ended up kind of detouring to music business. I spent a lot of time interning during those years. And as much as I wanted to get into music business, it ended up not really being in the cards for me. Just kind of the music industry kind of imploded on itself around the time that I graduated. And so I started off as a sales operations coordinator, I think it was. Maybe it was a sales and market operation. It was like a really long title and a long time ago. But I was doing like sales ops, essentially, like back in like Excel sheets and things like that when I first started working. And honestly, making not great money for a few years really led me to, okay, how can I make good money? And so everybody's like, you get an MBA. And so that's why I went back the second time. I ended up going part-time to NYU Stern for my MBA, because I was like, honestly, like, I know I'm a manager now, but I still make beans. So even if I get like an entry-level position at like a bank, I was like, I will make more money. And it was just kind of strange how getting that MBA ended up getting the attention of the president of the company that I was working for at the time, because she was a Harvard MBA and a woman. And all of a sudden she's like, Vanessa, we're going to put you on a path to COO. Now, I never made it there, but it threw me on a path where I didn't feel like I had one before. So the MBA really made a big difference in my career, but it was a total departure from that whole music business thing, which at that point in my life, I was like, I'm in my mid-20s. I need a direction. So gave up on that by that point.
Got it. Awesome. That's really exciting. I know we talked a little bit offline. When you were in school, you did about 11 internships, and that's so cool. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was crazy. I am in general an overly ambitious person. And so I knew in my music business program that I could start interning as soon as I was a junior. So I ended up actually front loading all of my credits so that I was down to like 12 credits a semester my junior and senior year. So I could put in as many internships as possible. My big motivation was that I wanted to experience different jobs in the music industry. So different parts of it. So I had a radio internship. I did MTV, I did the Harry Fox agency. I did Epic Records. I did Columbia Records. Like, I mean, sat in executive offices trying to transcribe the lyrics to Nas's Stillmatic, in the office because they didn't want to ask him what his lyrics were. I was there when Nelly got his first platinum album and he came into the office with champagne, like, wow. But I got to really experience all the different things. So I got to see publicity. I got to see big corporate experiences like MTV. I also got to work for like small management companies and see if I liked kind of more of an entrepreneur kind of a thing. So I learned a lot about business, and I learned a lot about music business and the things I liked and the things I didn't like. But ultimately, like I said, the music business imploded. And so sales operations it was, because it was the only place that would take me.
That's so cool. I can only imagine Nelly coming in the office. I mean, those experiences that you have to have. And just for some context for everybody that's watching, Vanessa and I had spoken offline, and we both feel like it's really important to explore different careers. Both, I'm really ambitious people. I've been the same way. I've taken on like not 11, but like 2 or 3 internships for like the year period of college. And I think it's just a rewarding experience. You get to network and find out like how to network and what the best ways for you are. And I would love to ask you about that, like your networking history from when you were doing those internships and in getting your MBA, to the difference to it now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the reasons why I failed in my music business career was that I was terrible at networking. This was like back before the days of social media. So there was no LinkedIn. Like I didn't, it was like, I still had like my like little brick of a cell phone. So it wasn't like texting because you had to there was no texting. There's no smartphones back then. So you really, to network, I mean, I did all these 11 internships with all these really powerful people that knew my name, at these big companies, but it was like, hey, how are things going today? So it felt so awkward to be like, how's Nelly's next album? Things going good over there? And it was just like forced conversation where I feel like these days you can kind of not have to proactively keep up those relationships. You can really just take a back seat and just see what's going on in people's lives and just inject yourself when it makes sense. So like you were talking about having your conga certification, and similar to how we're both wearing the same shirt today, somehow magically, we both had that conga certification in common, and kind of like, where you're walking the street, like, hey, where'd you get that code? That's so cute. I had noticed that your badge was updated, and I was like, I want an updated conga badge. Tell me more. And so we connected on that level where it wasn't like, hi, my name is Vanessa Grant, and I am interested in learning more about your career. Congratulations on your conga thing. And it was a lot more of an organic interaction. And I think these days with social media, everything can be a lot more organic, and you can really inject more of your personality and connect with people that way, where it's just not as forced as it was like back in my days. I just didn't have the personality to like force lunches on my previous bosses back in the day. I probably would have been more successful in my music business career had I been more of that like pushy kind of person, but
sending that email, getting that lunch date.
Right.
Yeah. And that's something I talk about actually a lot on this channel, is just developing your own personal brand, in whatever way that reflects you. Right. Because nowadays, and this is something Vanessa and I were also talking about offline, was just that we're coming into the era where we're all online, and whatever platform you're on, like you just have to make that represent you. And you don't have to do it immediately, but I would strive to just maybe make one post per week that reflects you. If it's a picture, that's fine. If it's a video, like those little small things, that just makes you separate from the other people that are just commenting on the same, if you got a certification, congratulations. But making that difference and making that stand out, that helps you build a connection. And honestly, that's one of the most beautiful parts of Salesforce that we have. So I would love to talk to you. I know we also talked about this offline too, but your networking at Dreamforce and how you started there. And then, from having the company and going in with a business perspective, and then going in now in the past month that now Dreamforce has taken place.
So I had gone to Dreamforce 2 times previously. I want to say it was like 2015 and maybe 14.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a VP of business ops at the time, basically a Salesforce customer product owner, like on the business side of things. So internally deciding what the roadmap was, I managed the devs that we had, I managed the admins that we had. And so when I went to Dreamforce, like it was pure, like, how can I add value to the company? So I would meet with App Exchange partners and I'd sit through sessions and take really good notes so that I could come back re-energized to improve our Salesforce org.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't speak to anybody. Like, I think I was telling you earlier, like the most networking I did was Salesforce, like, hey, you're a really enthusiastic customer. Can you sit next to Toyota and we'll feed you a filet mignon? And I was like, that sounds awesome. I will totally like wax poetic about how much I love Salesforce to this Toyota guy while I shove meat in my face. Like, yes. But I didn't speak to anybody else in Salesforce on the same career path that I was. I didn't really even talk to other customers. And I felt like this year attending Dreamforce in person, and I was really fortunate to get that invite. I felt was the first time that I did Dreamforce right. Of course, I attended some sessions, but it wasn't the focus. Like the reality is, like Salesforce is amazing at getting people to put out Salesforce content. Like there's plenty of Salesforce content and sessions if I really want to dive into a topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what you get at these in-person events and like those community events is the networking and making connections with folks. And networking requires more than just one touch point. Like it requires, getting in somebody's radar more than once so that they know your name, they know your face. And having been in the community for I guess the year since the pandemic, is really when I dove in. By the time I got to Dreamforce, it was like, I was describing it like a family reunion, because it was all people that, I was meeting like 100 people that I knew from the internet in the Salesforce community, but these were all people that I had really connected with through multiple touch points and multiple webinars and multiple LinkedIn posts or like comments about whatever, Twitter, over the course of that year or so. And it was really good. It was nice to hug people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I definitely,
person.
Yeah, I wasn't hugging the Toyota guy.
Yeah, only the filet mignon.
I love the filet mignon though. It was good.
So kind of going on to that, you made me just think of a question. But for those people that really want to start putting out themselves, right, and reflect who they are in their personal and professional networking, like LinkedIn, from a year ago when you started posting on social media, what was kind of like that turn point to you? I want to show, Vanessa said to herself, I want to show myself. What was that turning point, and what would you say to somebody who wants to do the same?
I gave up on the idea of being a like forced content creator, and ended up kind of rebranding my own self mentally as a content supporter. Because there was a lot to learn. There's always a lot to learn in the Salesforce ecosystem. And so I thought that if I supported folks, I mean, people, hey, you've got a YouTube show. I mean, it's nice when people give you feedback. You don't want to feel like you're speaking out into the void and that nobody's hearing you.
Yeah.
And so I found that as I was kind of on this Salesforce journey and mildly obsessed with catching up kind of so that I felt like I was doing good things in my Salesforce career. I did end up attending a lot of webinars. I did end up connecting with a lot of people, and I was connecting to like 10 people a day, just throwing out random things where like, I mean, a year and a half ago, I was deleting people off my LinkedIn because I was like, oh, I haven't worked with that guy in 2 months. I should get rid of him on LinkedIn. But what's the point of LinkedIn then? I do just, if I really liked Bob in accounting, like let's connect on Facebook. Like LinkedIn is for networking. So once I started connecting with folks and commenting regularly, and again, just commenting when it moved me, and saying things that I meant, then and even showing up to community events, although community events went virtual. So people started seeing my face regularly. People started seeing my name regularly. I started connecting with people because we were going to the same things, or I started finding the people that were maybe further along in the Salesforce journey, that were maybe MVPs or were champions or enthusiasts of clouds that I was really interested in, or careers that I was really interested in. I mean, you throw me in a room with Ian Gotts and I'm like, oh my God, it's Ian Gotts. It's but I had to find him first, and he knows my name now. We spoke for like a half an hour at Tahoe Dreamin', and I was like, oh my God, it's Ian Gotts. But that's the thing is he as a content creator appreciated that I was there as a content supporter and helping to amplify the voices of people that I really respected. Ended up in a strange way giving me some respect.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think one big thing that you just pointed out was having like a buddy system. Like sometimes I know going into networking events, virtual or in person, can be really scary at first, right? You're meeting people. And I believe once you start attending these events and reaching out to people, you can just be like, hey, are you going to this event on the 16th of December? I'm going too, like, let's go together. So over time, you start developing like those buddies. And that buddy has a buddy who has a buddy. So it will become easier over time. The first step is just taking that. So cool. I'm so glad you were able to share that experience.
Yeah. Find your extroverts. There's going to be extroverts everywhere. Once you connect with an extrovert, all of a sudden you're getting invited to everything. All of a sudden it's like, hey, you want to be part of my platform app builder study group? Hey, you want to do, and it's weird, but that's part of the thing is that's why I was throwing out like blind LinkedIn requests, because the extroverts are just going to be like, sure, the more the merrier. And then all of a sudden you start seeing the events that they're a part of. You start getting invited to stuff. And if you're not connected to people, you're not going to get the opportunities. If people don't know your name, you're leaving the opportunities on the table somewhere of things that would actually be really relevant to your career journey.
Exactly. And another question just kind of came to my head when you said you were adding like 10 people a day, and I do the same thing. Do you add little notes, like personalize it when sending a request? Or how do you go about that? Do you contact them after?
Nope, I don't. Again, it's the, and I know I'm totally, don't listen to me. Everybody else is going to say, yes, you should add a personalized note. I thought if it was somebody that I ran into at a webinar or something, maybe I'd throw in a personalized note like, hey, it's Vanessa from, or if I worked with them, like, hey, this is Vanessa from that last meeting, like, good job, kind of thing. But if it's just somebody I've never met before, honestly, if you just kind of like click plus, if they're somebody who is looking to build up their audience or their network, like, again, it was having more of that organic relationship. And part of that organic relationship is I need them on my feed. So once they're on my feed, either I'm going to start seeing their posts and go, oh, hey, that's something I actually feel compelled to write you about. Or I'll comment or whatever it is, or I'll share your post because it's meaningful to me. But I hated that whole, like, again, it felt just like back in the emails, like, hey, old boss, do you want to have lunch? Forget it. It's not my style. It doesn't feel normal to me. Your LinkedIn profile said it's really, really awesome. Can you please accept my request? And try and sound, like I'm worthy in 250 characters. Forget it. I'm not all about that. I hit plus. If they don't like me, cool. I'll find somebody else. Like, there's plenty of people that are happy to accept my request. So that's my 2 cents. take it or leave it.
No, I love that. No, and that goes right into what you were saying at the beginning is this, you have to grow things organically. And that's part of the thing on LinkedIn, like the organic relationships. And that's exactly how this happened. Conga, like, and I'm going to shout them out for sure. So, so they can know. So
Love my
cool.
con.
So tell us a little bit about how you really fell into Salesforce. And I know you worked at DocuSign before, just kind of like run through your professional background.
Sure. So after my 11 internships, and actually I want to take a quick sidetrack if I can on the internships thing. I don't think I realized when I was interning at the time, kind of like how much privilege I had that I could work for free. And that's been a big part of my mentorship now in the Salesforce community, is that there's so many folks that are like, oh my God, I need Salesforce experience. Like, there are predatory companies out there that will absolutely let you work for free, like for-profit organizations that will absolutely let you work for free, just, because, Salesforce talent's really expensive. And I am a big advocate now in my later years of making sure that people are paid properly, even for internships. Internships should be learning experience. Don't take advantage of college kids. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, but I do think it's important that especially college kids get paid, so that the internships aren't just done by people that can afford to not get paid, especially at those early years. So just my 2 cents there. I'll get off my soapbox now and talk about my amazing journey and all the opportunities that I was afforded by. But after the music business thing kind of fizzled out, I ended up, one of my internships was this $50 a week. On Fridays, I would pick contest winners for radio stations. And it was like this like little SaaS company that used to sell service, like web services to radio stations, because radio is always going to be a little bit behind the rest of the world when it comes to business. And so there were a bunch of radio stations that were like, we know we need a website, but we're not sure how to do it. And so that was kind of how this SaaS came to be. And they had a position open up for, like I said, that sales operations kind of thing. And from the time I was an intern, I ended up becoming a VP there because the company just kept growing and growing and acquiring other companies. And it was one of those where I just sat somewhere and did a good job, and people noticed, and getting that MBA also helped.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but I worked my ass off for this company for a long time and made VP by the time I was 29.
It's amazing.
And part of that, doing sales ops was keeping track of our contracts and overseeing some of the data in the CRM. So we had done Sales Logics, we had Goldmine for a while. I even helped create a new software from scratch to keep track of our contracts.
Wow.
And then in 2010, it was, we acquired 2 companies. One of them came with Sugar CRM and one of them came with Salesforce. And so I was tasked as a VP of business ops. So day-to-day operations and the CRM were all in my wheelhouse to figure out what the unified CRM for the company was going to be. Never heard of Salesforce before. Like I said, I've been using Goldmine and connecting it to this random, software that I helped build. And when I say help build, I sat in the room while somebody else coded it. I said, there needs to be a field here that does this thing. Similar to what I do now. But I was on the task force, and we demoed Sales Logics again and all the other stuff. And when I saw that Salesforce demo, I didn't realize, as I sat in that demo, that it was going to change my life. But that Salesforce demo was, it was the first time I saw a real platform. And I was like, this can replace Goldmine, and it can replace that software that I created. I can actually build the things that I need on this platform. And by me, I mean, I could tell somebody else to build that thing, because I could not build the thing, but I had lots of ideas, and that was really important as a VP of business ops. So we ended up going with Salesforce, and right around the time that we launched Salesforce was when the company said that we were divesting another part of the company. And with that, company that we were divesting, the IT department was leaving us. And so we lost our Salesforce administrators or our CRM administrators. And they're like, by the way, Vanessa, thanks for doing the Salesforce thing. You're also going to be the admins and developers for this thing. So I became like an accidental product owner, and the folks on my team, I ended up home growing my own admin. He's an admin at Associated Press now. So good for him. Shout out to Austin. I ended up home growing my own like Salesforce developer.
Wow.
And it was a whole, trial by fire, but we came out the other end being really successful. Hence, filet mignon with Toyota.
That's so awesome. That's such a fun story as well. So like, what were some of the struggles and where did your strengths from your previous positions come into play when it came to doing the, now taking on Salesforce?
I was always data inclined. While I started that sales ops role, like everything was on Excel, and, God forbid somebody sorted the Excel incorrectly. You were like, oh my God, we got to go back. We don't know who our customers are anymore. Kind of like, that's how bad things were when you're in like more of a startup environment. Over my decade of being at that company, I had worked on improving data operations and kind of some of those CIO-ish type duties of making sure our data was clean. And so the transition to Salesforce was, I still remember being in my apartment, like talking to the consultant that was helping us implement and like being in tears, like, I know I got to get this done, but it's really, like tears. But that's, those are Salesforce implementations for you sometimes, especially, back in those days, I was the pain of classic. And so much development, everything, there was so much code in that thing. It was hard. And I struggled a lot with the lack of resources. You have to imagine like, these were back in the days of, there weren't like, these days you can't, I see you can't throw a dead cat without hitting a Salesforce admin, but like back in those days, there weren't Salesforce admins. Like Salesforce, like the best practice from Salesforce, if you went onto their website back in those days, was like, sometimes the best person to be a Salesforce admin is the person who feels the most passionate about your data. Like Debbie in reception might be a great candidate for a Salesforce admin. Like that was like the from Salesforce kind of advice they were giving back in those days. So trying to figure out how to, what roles people needed to play, what resources and skills we needed, and also just how to do it. There was a trailhead back then, so we all just kind of made it up. And thankfully I had a team of data-minded folks that we kind of understood how things were supposed to work, and we got it to work as well as we could. I'm sure I left a pile this big of technical debt, apologies to whoever is admitting that org these days, but for what we did at the time, it was really innovative, I thought.
Yeah. And to have to go from scratch, not really, you guys had to work together. And I think that's another big skill that you probably got from that. So, and that leads me into the next area that I wanted to talk to you about was like mentoring. During that time, I know you just said there weren't as many platforms to reach out to people if you had questions, but did you have a mentor during that time? Did you have people to fall back onto?
No, I can't actually. Back in my Triton days, no. I will say though, where the mentorship these days kind of comes in is I was a manager. I was a VP of business ops. I managed 7 people. And part of my job, and I think what made me an effective manager, was always being conscious of the career journeys of all the people that I managed. And if you're more of a servant leader type person, and you really do your best to help everybody on your team move forward in their goals, so maybe stretch them in the direction that they want to go, and set them up for success. I found that was a really effective strategy for getting folks to want to do good work for me, because they spent a lot of effort. Like I said, we're all figuring this out together, but they put a lot of effort in trying to make me look good and make me successful, because we were both serving each other as far as making each other successful. And I'm not a manager anymore. And I think I missed that part of it. I mean, I don't miss all the aspects of management. There's always going to be like HR stuff and drama and, but I did miss the mentorship aspect. And I found that doing the trailhead mentorship, and also even just connecting randomly with people on LinkedIn and helping them with their journeys kind of filled that hole in my heart that I lost when I stopped actively managing people as part of my day-to-day job.
That's a beautiful story. I think that mentoring, and that's where I wanted to go with you. But Vanessa shows that there's just different ways that you can mentor, just commenting on somebody and supporting them and saying like, study more, you got this. Or telling them a tip that, I learned this 2 years ago, like try for my mistake, do it this way. And that's really important. And I talk a lot about mentorship in this channel here. It doesn't have to be the typical like trailblazer mentorship program that they have. Well, you can, that's terrific. But just being a support for somebody, and if that's a natural trait of who you are, then go for that. I think that's one of the best ways to honestly like help people. So Vanessa, the last question I have for you, or two really, is can you tell us some of your top favorite things about working in Salesforce, and where is Vanessa going next? What is her plan? What does her journey look like?
So my top two things going into, well, hold on. Sorry. You might have to edit that. I spaced out. I was like, gosh, have I never had a mentor? Like I had mentors like more in my like Salesforce career, but like not when I was learning Salesforce, like when we first started, like there were no mentors then. Like more, it was like in my DocuSign years, like that's when people were supporting me on my Salesforce journey. Yeah. And that was, learning what a business analyst was like that's the kind of stuff. But sorry, you can edit all that out. I was just like, gosh, I sound like such an asshole. Like, man, no,
you don't.
Nobody raised me up.
But no, I think you bring up a good point, because are you kind of saying like outside of Salesforce, you didn't really have a mentor, like until you stepped into the Salesforce industry?
I feel like when I was a VP of business ops and I'd been at the same company for 17 years, since me and my team were the lone folks that were doing Salesforce, there really wasn't anybody to speak to. It was still very new. Salesforce was still very new. And the idea of like there being a community around a CRM was like, that's kind of like if you had said, oh yeah, we have a community surrounding Microsoft Word. Like it sounds weird. Like that's what it would have sounded like to me in the early, 2000s. It was more when, I mean, that's honestly one of the reasons why I got into the Salesforce ecosystem so much, was when I got laid off from my VP of sales ops role, business ops, sorry, whatever I was doing at the time. And when I got laid off, I didn't have anybody to call, because there was nobody that I had connected with that did the same stuff that I did. And so that's when the networking became more important. And that's when mentors kind of revealed themselves, because once I decided that I want to dedicate myself to more of a Salesforce role, because I did Salesforce, I just hadn't put in the effort to dedicate myself to Salesforce. That's when folks really started coming out and supporting that journey. Like when I kind of did my little sidetrack into DocuSign consulting, that's where I discovered Conga as well. My boss ended up having the company pay for my admin thing. That was cool. But anyway, so I totally ignored your question, and I'm very, very sorry. But I was like, man, I sound like such a jerk.
No, and I think that you really touch on an important thing. And a lot of times when people come into the Salesforce industry, they're like, pinch me, is this real? Like all these support people and like just help, right? Just communication. Like people are so accustomed to silos, and that's really part of the Great Resignation, especially in tech communities, because they're just a number. And I think what Salesforce does a really good job at, and Salesforce, yes, but the people of Salesforce, is that they make you feel special. So they build you from the ground up as people, better yet. But just
A
kind of,
warm hug.
yeah, exactly. They give you that warm hug sensation, like that big teddy bear, like warm cookies from mom or grandma on a day that's cold. But what I was kind of like going at was, and I'll divide it into two questions, but the question was, can you tell us, I guess we kind of just answered it though.
Did
It
we?
was going to be, can you tell us about one of your favorite, well, maybe not. Can you tell us about one of your favorite parts of working with Salesforce?
It's the warm hug.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the problems that Salesforce can solve. And being a biz ops person, that was my job day to day. And so it's just that I get to, whereas Salesforce was just like my favorite tool in my tool belt, I have now dedicated myself to Salesforce being pretty much the entire tool belt, and App Exchange or maybe the little extras that I know. But it helps me be more effective, I think, rather than, and I like it. There's something about being that bridge between tech people and business folks that kind of blends in everything from like hanging out with my dorky comp sci people from high school, like, and also getting that MBA. It's a really good marriage of the two in where I'm at right now.
I would agree. I think one of the best parts about being in Salesforce is that, like, exactly like you said, you can be that middle person of telling what tech is and then also the business side. And that's very rare to find. And I think with Salesforce, it really helps those people that we're trying to find, per se, let's say a type of position that allowed you to do that. Salesforce allows you to be that bridge. So awesome. Now, Vanessa, the last question I have for you is, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself going?
Next for me. So right now I'm doing solution architect work, which I will say feels a little out of my comfort zone, since I tend to not like being the most technical person in the room. And there are times I am definitely expected to be the most technical person in the room. Like, okay, yeah, I'll get, what is it? I'll, ask Google. But I'm doing well at it. But I do see myself maybe, at least community wise, having more of a focus on my big passion, which is business analysis. I mean, there's just something, like I said, marrying that techie stuff with the business stuff gets me jazzed. Like I was at Tahoe Dream and listening again, Ian Gotts. But he and Richard Cunningham had these great sessions, and like I had to like hold myself back in my seats. I was like, yes, you said it, like. And when you can find, and that's again another wonderful thing about Salesforce, is no matter what you're passionate about, there's probably a job in the ecosystem for you. And I think now that I found kind of my spot in the ecosystem, I feel like it's maybe a little bit of a black hole, as far as there's so many BAs that just like, what's a BA? Like, where do I find information about that? And while, again, you can't throw a dead cat without hitting, an admin or a blog written by an admin or an article written by an admin. There isn't a ton of resources for business analysts. So I think my next move is, I'm thinking about doing a Trailhead community group that's virtual for BAs, where anybody who wears a BA hat, whether they're an admin or a BA or an SA or whatever, would be able to go and talk about their challenges on collecting requirements and writing and all the fun things that come with that. Now, if I don't end up making it, I'm going to regret saying that. But I figure if I throw it out into the universe, I'll hold myself accountable, so I can look back at this video a year from now and be like, that was when I was thinking about doing that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. So,
YouTube's
if it's
forever.
out, it's official.
Forever.
That's so cool. Well, I would love to be a part of that group. I know a lot of people that would probably too. there's not the clearest understanding of what a BA is. So just to have people that can kind of throw in some ideas, maybe give yourself the title.
I would
Awesome.
love I would love to create the community that gets to decide what a Salesforce BA is. Because yes, we understand what business analysis is, but there is nuance to being a Salesforce business analyst.
Yeah.
And there are best practices that I would love to help establish. Like, hey, everybody, what are the basic questions that you ask during a Salesforce implementation? How do you write those user stories? How do you like to set up Jira when you're writing those user stories? Those are all those things where, yeah, I can kind of scour the internet and find some answers, but I don't know that I've had enough of those discussions with other people in the same role. And I would love to help maybe facilitate those discussions a little more.
Yeah, that was one of my first positions, and having a little bit more insight into that would have been really beneficial at the time. So if you do it, I'm here for it and ready for it. So yeah. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much. I had so much fun talking to you and just hearing about your story and your journey and just everything about you. So very excited for where you go. Thank you again, Conga. But I will definitely, or is there any last things that you would like to say for the audience?
Just thank you, Megan, for doing this. Again, you help me be that content supporter as much as I can help amplify voices that are helping others in the Salesforce community. I'm happy to do it. So pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much. And what are you wearing tomorrow so I know what to put on?
Green with the nails. We got to do it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.